And welcome back to Pastor Plex Podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Plex, and joining me in the studio is none other than Muhammad Ali.
Hello.
Pastor Mo preached our sermon on Sunday. And then also from the east side, Pastor Holland Gregg. How we doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Chris.
Well, awesome experience this past Sunday. We got into Song of Solomon, chapter 5. And the first couple verses talked about really the previous week, and it ended with eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love. But then things after the honeymoon experience of a lot of sexual intimacy then jumps into verse 2. Take it away from there, Mo. What did you experience, or what do you think is going on in this story? In fact, I have a question oriented around verses 2 through 7 of chapter 5. The question is, in the book of Song of Solomon, are verses chapter 5, 2 through 7 a dream? Because it starts with, I slept. And he said he's looking up Constable's notes, which if you're familiar with Dr. Tom Constable, one of my professors from Dallas Seminary, he says it's a dream. What say ye, Muhammad?
Maybe. It doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter. It can
one of
be.
my favorite answers in seminary was could be.
Could be.
Could be. And then I would get so angry because I would be like, no, just tell me the answer. And he'd be like, could be.
I slept, but my heart was awake.
Yeah. And the slept in the Hebrew, when I looked it up, it also could mean I laid down and my heart was awake. It's the same word.
Well, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it does, but it doesn't matter.
But why doesn't it matter?
It doesn't change anything.
Explain yourself. You're saying the Bible
I have a question right here.
doesn't
It matters
matter?
to them.
No. It doesn't matter whether she was awake or she's dreaming it, because what happens in the actual thing, in the actual text, that's what matters.
Right.
Yeah.
But and to be fair, this is a poem.
Yeah.
It's a song.
Yeah.
So
That's like asking the question is like, the thing that I brought up is like, when the guards beat her up, was that a good thing or a bad thing? It doesn't matter. That's
Right.
not the point.
it could have been corrupt guards.
Yes.
That were getting paid off, but the important thing is she
Yeah.
got beat down. It was painful.
Yeah, or they thought she was a prostitute
And
or
they're
a
beating her
virgin
down.
sneaking around
Yeah, and
out of her dad's house, and then they did do a good thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Like, stop worrying about like the policeman.
Yeah.
Is this a police brutality verse? No, it's
No.
not. Okay, so
but here's my what is your I slept but my heart was awake. This verse is in there for a reason. What are you
Yes.
supposed to get from that?
What I get from that, the biggest thing is that something in her heart is troubled.
Mm.
And then here comes the husband knocking on the door. And then even after he knocks on the door, for some reason, she's still not about it.
right.
And it takes him showing her that he cares about her through what he does, and he leaves myrrh on the doorknob. And that is what gets her to say, my heart is thrilled within me. So there's this back and forth that she has within herself. That's why later she says, my soul failed me, because she knew she should have gotten up.
Mm.
And then later when her friends ask her, hey, are you sure like you even want this guy? She goes off and says, among 10,000s, there is not another for me.
Yeah.
There
And
you go.
I think that's the big point.
right.
Yeah.
And I think the art here is he's trying to convey she can't sleep because there's something wrong.
Yes.
So the poem, the song, brings out, I was sleeping, but my heart was awake. You know, like kind of
Yeah.
you get to the song, right? And like she's really feeling the pain and the pangs of outrageous sorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for really making that come alive
You know,
for us.
listen, I think what happens for a lot of us is we don't understand the poetry emotion here.
Yes.
She's sleeping but awake. She can't sleep because there's something not right. And a sound, my beloved is knocking, saying, open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one, for my head is wet with dew, my locks with the drops of the night. I love that because he's like, I'm finally home after a long days at work. And you thought he was out working or something, and probably had said he would be at home at a certain time, but didn't make it. And she's fired up, pissed off about it. And she's like, you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
I'm not moving.
Yep.
I'm not going to get my feet dirty for you.
That's right.
Have you ever had your wife not get her feet dirty for you?
know what? My wife loves to serve me and get her feet dirty for me, and I cannot recall a time right now when she refused that.
That's
so
a good
That's
husband
good.
answer,
That was
dude.
a really
Yeah.
good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Praise the
Yeah,
Lord.
I think we've all experienced not wanting to get up. I know none of you have done this, but I've heard of some other guys that, like, when the baby would start crying, you just fake sleeping and then, like, jab an elbow back. And then, like, oh, you're, like, rolling over and sleep. And then she has to get up and go do it because that's, you know, it's like her job or something.
Can I share something actually? Okay, so confession.
All right.
One of my biggest kind of like pet peeves
Mm.
in marriage would be when, you know, it's bedtime, it's time to go to sleep, and I'm, you know, I've brushed my teeth,
Mm.
taken a shower, you know, I'm so tired. I've plugged my phone in.
Yeah.
I've taken out, you know,
yeah.
everything's just kind of ready, and then I lay down and I'm like, my head hits the pillow,
And you're
and at
almost
that
out.
moment,
Yep.
my wife would say, "Can you get me a glass of water?" And while you're up, can you find my charger? I thought, and can you, you know, and it's like
Oh.
all these things where I'm like, man, I was literally just in the other room, you know, if you would have just asked me a minute ago,
Yeah.
Right.
but you waited until I'm in that like bliss of I'm about to fall asleep, you know?
Yeah.
And I would get so annoyed. And there would be times where, you know, I'd be like, just die to yourself, just do it. And then there'd be other times where like, no, I'm standing my ground.
That's right.
Yeah.
You get your charger.
Get your charger.
Just, you know, you're up. You're not even tired. You're like on your phone looking at, you know, and, but then, you know, I was like, you know what? I made a decision a while back where I didn't like that. The times where I stood my, and I was like, no, I'm not going to, you know, I was like, you know what? I just want to I want to love and serve. I want to have this be a way that I love and serve and bless my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made a commitment. I told her, I said, no matter what, how tired I am, what it is, I'm always going to say yes if you ask me for something. And it's going to take the fight out of my head of
Yeah.
like, do I do it or do I say it? It's just my answer is always yes.
Nice.
And I actually say, as you wish. Princess Bride.
Yeah,
Remember this?
ow, I
Nice.
do the same thing.
So
love
I just
that.
say, as you wish. And now no
You
matter
stick it to 'em
what,
just a little bit.
Wow.
I always do it. And so I think she felt loved and blessed by that. And also, she's a little bit more conscious. She's like, I know he's going to say yes. I
Yep.
don't want to put that. I'm just going to do it myself sometimes.
That's right.
And it's made the whole thing. It's completely removed that pet peeve from our marriage.
Oh,
Look at
wow.
that.
And when I say yes, she feels blessed by it, and I get to love and serve her. And there's other times where she goes, you know what? I'm not going to have him do that. I'm going to do it myself.
Well, way to
Nice.
go.
Look at that.
It's been a blessing.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, and she never asked again.
No, she knows that. Yeah, she still asks, and she knows that I'll say yes now, and
Yeah.
so she utilizes that, and
Oh,
I get
yeah.
to love. But she doesn't. She doesn't actually ask as much
Nice.
as she used to. Just knowing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think usually there's a light that's left on that she senses, and then when I'm about to go to bed, I am now tasked to go get it. And I should probably do a better job of being very joyful about that,
As you wish.
as you wish. And the other thing I need to be better joyful at is when I'm about to pass out, have a sleep, and that's the time she decides to bring up a really
Bro.
difficult conversation.
Yes. Yes. All the time.
It's like the moment where, like, you know, the whole time we could have
Yep.
there was like 30, 40 minutes of like us in the same room, but
Yep.
nothing was brought up about this particular topic. And then she waits until I'm almost, it's like, hey, I've been thinking. And I'm like, oh my, well, what happened to the 45 minutes before this moment right now?
Yep.
What's going on?
Yep.
You've experienced that?
All the time.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a challenge. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I definitely can understand this woman.
As
Yep.
you wish.
That's
As
right.
you wish.
Yeah.
As you wish.
Yeah. Which is funny because for her, it's like, oh man, I don't want to have sex with you right now. But for the guy, it's like, man, I don't want to talk about this right now.
Oh,
it's the
nice.
complete opposite,
Oh,
right?
that is a great point. I
Man.
never thought about that.
Oh.
That is.
Dang it.
Wow, that's wild.
Missed it.
That is like totally.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I would have never thought like that. That just brings it all together for
Yeah,
me.
it does. Yeah.
Like women don't want to have sex like at the last second.
Yep.
They're thinking, why didn't you not
Yep.
prepare this, talk about it, initiate? You're waiting till this very second when I'm about to pass out.
Yep.
And for women, they start conversations when a man is about to pass out.
Yep.
That
Yep.
you just
That's
blew
it.
my mind
Yep.
right there.
And that's why if each person in the couple just takes on the mindset of as you
wish.
wish,
As you wish.
everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Well, that's because it's 1 Corinthians 7:3. Rend the affection due to to one another.
There you go.
Or,
it is.
as the ESV says, just give up the conjugal rights.
Which,
Just right to it.
right to it, man.
Okay, so let's talk through then his response. I really love the way you brought this up on Sunday with like, my beloved put his hand to the latch and my heart was thrilled within me. I rose to open to my beloved. Like, how long did it take her to get to the door? That's the question. Like, she could have been like, hey, I'm so glad you're here. But I don't know if the bolt took a while to, and then gets it undone. And then she opens the door and she doesn't know where he is.
Yeah.
And what's going on there. I would love to know what happened. And I love how she said, my soul failed me when he spoke. Meaning she could have spoken up.
Yep.
But she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that was about?
She's just regretting it. She's just like, dang it, I took too long to get to the door. And she sees him putting his hand through the latch with myrrh.
Yeah.
So she could have right there been like, oh man, like, come on in, whatever. So there are just so many times where she could have said something and she doesn't.
Yeah, I love what you said on Sunday. They were kept missing each other. I think that's a real difficult part of a relationship when you keep missing one another.
Yep.
Okay, then transition to the Watchmen. The Watchmen found. I know it's not about police brutality or it's not about any of that, but what do you think the point is? There's barriers. She gets hurt.
Yep.
What is it?
There's consequences to your actions.
There's consequences to not reaching out.
Yeah, because he did all the right things. He was sweet. He used good words. He showed her a gift. He waited for a little bit. So it's just like when your spouse pursues you in all the right ways and you don't respond, there's going to be some sort of internal turmoil, probably.
Yeah.
I do. One of the things we talk about is that this passage of scripture is interpreted as allegory, literal, or typology. The one thing I thought was interesting, because you're not going to find this about Jesus anywhere. I sought him, but I didn't find him.
That's exactly right.
I was
Yeah.
like, this.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do with that?
Right.
I called him, but he gave no answer.
Yeah.
Seek and you will find.
Yep.
Clearly is what the scripture says. And I don't want to. Sometimes it may feel like he's not answering, but I thought that was an interesting piece right here as how do people who interpret this allegorically, how do you reconcile I sought him but didn't find him? Now, ultimately she does.
Yeah.
But she has to be like, hey, call the friends. Have you seen him?
Yeah.
I just don't know. Maybe that's like, if you're having a hard time with God, get the church around you to rally around prayer. But man, it seems like that's a miss on the allegorical interpretation.
Maybe it could be. Like Jeremiah, if you seek me with your whole heart.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she wasn't seeking with her whole heart.
Yeah.
Or this isn't supposed to point to that.
Right. Or not at all. Right.
Or like sometimes in the Old Testament it says like, you will seek me or you will call out to me, but I will not answer you.
Right.
Like that's a thing, right?
Yeah, that's with the wicked. Now,
right. So that's allegorical. That can be interpreted, right?
I guess.
Like, hey, if you forsake him enough, he gives you up to your own ways, Romans 1, and then if you try to seek him, he cannot be found in that moment or whatever. But if you seek him enough, even if you're the wicked, he will answer, which he does.
Yeah.
So that's how
Eventually, I don't know. Yeah,
that's the most I can do.
Yeah,
with
okay,
that.
all right, that's fair. Jeez. Okay, that's good. Han, what else did you get out of this text here? I like how they bring up the community. What is they go, she says, hey, daughters of Jerusalem, if you see him, let him know I'm sick with love. And then the other's like, what do you mean you're sick with love? What is your beloved more than another beloved? Oh, most beautiful among women. You can have anybody you want. Mm-hmm. Where do you think she's going with that?
The person asking the question or her answer?
The others people, I guess, daughters of Jerusalem.
Yeah, it doesn't really, you don't get an explanation of their intentions here.
Mm-hmm.
Are they, trying to slam? Like, are they being like, what's so great about this guy? Or are they trying to draw out and remind her?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, which way did you go with that, Mo?
Draw out and reminder.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like, what is your beloved more? This guy you're into, he's not that great. Like, move on,
Mm-hmm.
But throughout the song, the others are really like, they're really more of like a positive voice, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a mix. Like they're into the relationship and supportive of it, but also they're listening to the relationship and taking advice from it. And so it seems more like genuine curiosity and trying to draw out, like, okay, remember again or tell us again why this person is special to you,
Right.
and which she does. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important role for in terms of relationship. You can go like a dating relationship, or you can go to your relationship with Christ. But the role of the church in each of those things is to like draw out and remind you, what is it about this person that has drawn you to them?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
think
good?
that's
Is it
huge.
worthy? Is it, something in terms of a dating relationship, hey, tell me again, why is it that you're into this person? Is it that they love Christ? Is it that
Yeah.
they're a godly person?
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, remember again why you followed Jesus in the first place. Like, what
Mhm.
was it about him that brought you in, that drew you in, and remember again, your desire for Jesus. So I think
Yeah.
it works both those ways.
That is good.
Mm-hmm.
I also like, when I think of, this makes me think of Revelation, because when it talks about his arms, like rods of ivory. Now, granted, in Revelation, it's like he's bronzed,
Yeah.
so different. But then also, like the Church of Ephesus lost their first love. Like you have all the right doctrine, all the right whatever, and yet you have no love for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of appreciated that aspect, that a conflict. Because there's always pointing towards Christ and the church, right? Because of Ephesians 5 makes every marriage about Christ and the church.
Yep, exactly.
And so I do think there is something there of like, when she reminds him, it's like, hey, you are classy, you are strong, you're protective, you've got it all taken care of, and this is my beloved and this is my friend.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
thought that was a
Yeah, that's
sweet way
huge,
to
yeah.
kind of land the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, thank you, daughters of Jerusalem. Here's all the reasons why I love him. And then that's where they're like, we will seek him with you, which we find out in chapter 6.
Yeah.
So anyway, any other thoughts on Song of Solomon chapter 5? Any other marriage advice we can dole out here?
Mm.
Keep short accounts.
Yeah.
Like I like how she doesn't go back to her bed and go,
Mhm.
he'll figure itself out. I
Yeah.
mean, like she's like, I want resolution to this. Now, on the same hand, like going out and chasing the streets, and it's dangerous when what we find out is he's just in the garden, which
Yep. Mm-hmm.
we find out like, oh, where's that? Oh, he's actually in the garden, and
Yeah.
you went running through the streets because you were emotionally
Mm,
compromised through the
yeah,
whole thing.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's been here the whole time.
Yeah.
You just missed him
Mhm.
again.
Again.
Like,
yeah.
what's wrong? Like, you gotta like pull yourself together and think logically, not that he's chasing after another woman, but that he's just going, he's gonna go back to the garden where he was.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, his hair's a little wet because he's been out all night. But I think there's that part of it where sometimes in a relationship you can mind read and sort of like
Assume,
assume
aka assume.
the worst that
Yeah.
your spouse is doing. Yeah, so assume the worst.
Yeah.
So she goes to assume the worst. So he must be out gallivanting around, because she lost her chance. And he's way more godly than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think sometimes when we get emotionally compromised, sad, hurt, whatever, we then go to the worst case scenario, which is kind of what she does here, as opposed to my husband would be doing the right thing. Where's the most logical place for him to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love as well just verse 5 that my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with liquid myrrh on the handles of the bolt. That when she didn't get up, when she, ignored him, his efforts to, come to her, to love her, he left a blessing there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that has represented their relationship, myrrh, right? That has represented his presence, his love, his affection for her. He leaves a blessing for her. And so I think just a reminder, an encouragement, a message to the husbands, like when you feel like I'm trying to love my wife, I'm trying to serve her, I'm trying to lead, she's not receiving it, or, she's still treating me this way. Like if you're struggling with, the way your wife is following your lead or receiving your love, I think this is a good encouragement just to remember, like always leave a blessing. Never return,
Yeah.
Yeah.
reviling for reviling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought what you did on Sunday was great with that. You
Nice.
brought up that exact point.
Yeah.
And I wonder what's a practical way
Yeah.
that we can apply this.
Yeah.
Like, what are some ways that, as you wish with your wife, but like, what are some ways that when there's friction, that you leave a blessing for her to linger with, which I love that. I mean, how can we as men, because I feel like I always bring it up in my marriage coaching. There's 3 types of couples. There are couples that are pursuing each other. I call that the Italian couple because they're usually pursuing each other very loudly.
Yeah.
There's the Victorian couple where they're like not pursuing each other, where they're both avoiding each other. And then there's the American couple that one person is nagging, the other person is giving them space. And what's happening here is a husband realizes the rejection and he's not going to force himself, but he leaves a blessing. And I'm trying to think through, like, how can we as Christian men, when there is hurt, leave a blessing? And maybe you can't get too specific because then it loses its reality, but maybe leave a blessing.
Yeah. Cook a meal,
Cook
flowers.
a meal. There you go. Do the laundry. Do whatever, like, normally is her whatever role, job, whatever. Maybe you'd take the initiative. Maybe plan the date night.
Also, resist the urge to be petty,
Yeah.
to be passive aggressive, to just ignore or be rude or, give the silent treatment, when all those things that all the petty, sinful, immature stuff that rises up in your flesh, that just to reject that stuff and to continue to be a loving, consistent, presence.
Yeah,
and
because I feel
pursuit
like most
your
of the
wife.
time, here
Absolutely.
in the marriage coaching I've done, it looks like this: the woman is hurt because of something the man did inadvertently, or
didn't do.
or didn't do, or just like
Yeah.
a sin of omission,
Yeah.
or a sin of commission, but it wasn't intentional. All right.
Yeah.
And then the man gets so like frustrated that he feels like, I can't take that. She just is walking all over me. I didn't even. And then he rises up and it escalates a battle of like World War III. And now he's like, oh, prison rules. All right, let's go. And I think what happens is that couples create a battle where the husband could go, hey, I love you and I want the best for you. And for some reason, you're not receiving it. I'm going to leave something here for you to remember this by while I give you some space.
Yeah.
And if there was never any sense of, I don't know, payback, because I feel like that's where I got to get the last word in. I got to make sure she knows how wrong she is. I don't want to be a doormat. And to lovingly express your care for her, even when she's coming at you with harshness or even untruth, I think that becomes super valuable ultimately for the relationship, because she'll remember how you treated her, not when everyone was lovey and dovey, but when she was wrong or angry or hurt.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that can be, the emotions are rising and stuff and saying, hey, I don't want to argue with you. I want to lead us through this. I don't feel like I'm in a good place to do that right now, but I don't want to just leave it alone. Let's come back to this. Let's take some time to pray. Instead of just being like, well, screw you. And, just like, I'm going to walk away and I'm not going to, just leaving and giving no indication of, hey, I want to come back and resolve. But simply like just clearly sharing, I love you. We're going to get through this. Let's take some space and some prayer and come back to it at this time or this date.
I call that a controlled withdrawal.
Yeah,
One of the, I think what's really helpful is where a couple, they're pursuing each other in anger, and then they say, hey, let's stop to get our focus on the Lord, and then we can come back together to resolve this. That is going to be ultimately the most helpful thing. And if he can lead in that by loving her first, and then she can respond. I think what's hard for men a lot of the times is that they miss out on the fact that they are the initiator and the wife is the responder. And anytime you get that backwards, it ends up the husband responding to his wife puts him in a space that he was not designed for, and it creates a negative outcome no matter what, even if he goes passive and says, I don't want to fight, whatever you want.
Yeah.
That doesn't help.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens, a man responding with, hey, happy wife, happy life is not what we're talking about. Because I think
Right.
that's the struggle. Like,
Yeah, it's the
how does a
balance.
man
Yeah.
stay on the initiative
Yeah.
to say, because it could be that his wife is in sin and that she is wrong, but how can he lovingly calm her,
Yep.
stop her,
Yep.
reorient her,
Yep.
leave a blessing,
Yeah.
and then pursue her again in a way that honors God, his role, her role. And I think that's where I feel like most couples struggle
Yeah.
is they get to this place of the woman says, well, this is how it's going to be. And in his head, he's like, I don't think that's right, but happy wife, happy life. I don't want to battle this anymore. I don't really care. Fine, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And then she wins, which in a moment feels good for her, but ultimately makes her feel less secure.
Yeah.
And she's going to battle even more as they go. I think that becomes the hard spot. And so for the husband to say, hey, we're going to stop this right now. We're not going to continue battling. And I'm not going to engage with you. I want to love you through this. We're going to come back at whatever time to reconnect about this. There's children around right now. I want to parent them really well.
Right.
And that might, anyway, I know there's this, it gets hard to deal with specifics, but the one thing I don't want men to do is to walk away from this like just whatever she wants.
Yeah.
That's not the answer.
No.
Yeah. That's passivity. That's
Right.
not leading. That's abdicating your role.
You wanted
And
this, you get what you want. And so I think that's hard.
And it's tempting,
It's
obviously.
very tempting.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all been tempted with that, or we've been guilty of it.
Sure.
but-
Yeah.
I think there's the consistent sort of like, I just want the fighting to stop. And then the cost cannot be, I'll just respond to you.
Mhm.
And that's where you find a beaten man in a home where he is not leading and the wife is carrying that weight, and it makes for things being out of sync.
Mhm.
And so I think one of the things that might be wise, if that's you, then getting to a place where, talk to a pastor, talk to someone who's godly and say, how can I initiate even when it's feeling like I'm constantly responding to her gripes or her whatevers, and you're on your heels all the time. And it's probably because at some point you check out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you check out into your phone, you check out into sports, you check out into the news, you check out to work out, whatever, and you don't ever come back to engage and lead. That becomes problematic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Hey, any other thoughts on that? Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, we talk about faith, culture, everything in between. You can text us at 737-231-0605 or go to pastorpleck.com. We'd love to hear from you. From our house to yours, have an awesome week of worship.